today's licensing subcommittee. This is a public meeting and members of the public and press are permitted to report on proceedings. Reporting includes filming, photography and making an audio recording and providing commentary on proceedings. Please note this meeting is recorded and streamed live, and these recordings are published on the relevant meetings page of the Council's website. By choosing to attend this public meeting, you are deemed to have given your consent to be filmed or recorded and for any footage to be broadcast or published. If the alarm sounds, the premise must be evacuated immediately. Do not spend time collecting personal belongings. All emergency escape routes are clearly signed, and once you've left the building, the assembly point is on the High Street opposite the Guildhall. Members and other speakers are reminded to use their microphones when speaking.
Good morning and welcome to this licensing subcommittee. If we can proceed to the first order of business, which is the election of chair. Can I please have any nominations?
Lucy Hodgson.
Do I have a seconder? Thank you. That motion is carried.
Are there any declarations of interest?
No.
No. So, first of all, identify all persons present. So,
Richard Udall, Councillor for St John's, Chair of Licensing.
Jenny Barnes, Councillor for Arboretum.
And Lucy Hodgson, Councillor for Warndon Villages. And then
Ryan Keat, Solicitor, Legal Services.
And then
Neil Bell, Training Sounds Officer from Worcestershire County Council.
Nikki Jones, Licensing Officer at Worcestershire Regulatory Services.
Niall McMenamin, Principal Officer, Licensing, Worcestershire Regulatory Services.
and Margaret. No.
Margaret Johnson, Democratic Services Administrator. Thank you.
Thank you. So presentations to this subcommittee are not given under oath. However, I should like to remind all parties that the highest standard are expected, and any deviation from these high standards could possibly influence any decisions of the subcommittee. I will remind each representative or applicant that they can be represented by legal representatives, but at this moment in time, the applicant actually isn't in this room. So he's chosen not to come.
That's correct, Councillor. We've had correspondence, or we've been in correspondence with Mr. Ahmed. He's the licence holder of the premises in question. That's currently the topic for this morning's application review. And he's confirmed that he's unable to attend. He hasn't indicated that he wished to reschedule, and he stated that he won't be getting legal advice. So it's a decision today whether he wishes to continue in his absence.
From a legal perspective, you are entitled to proceed in his absence. He's clearly aware of the meeting. He has made written representations, and they are in the bundle. And by way of legal advice, I would remind you that you cannot place any less weight on his submissions just because he has chosen not to attend.
Thank you. So, are we content that we'd like to hear it?
Yes.
Yes. So, we go on to the licensing officer will present the report.
Thank you, Chair, Councillors. If you turn to page 1, agenda item number 3 of the report pack, you'll see that this is an application for the review of a premises licence, and the store in question is called International. So you're asked today, the purpose of today's report is to consider and determine an application for the review of a premises licence in respect of International, which is located at 24 to 26 Lowesmore in Worcester. A copy of the premises licence review application is attached at Appendix 1 in its entirety. So that is the full review application. So a bit of background. On the 4th of May, an application was received by the Council from Mr Ian Bell, acting on behalf of Worcestershire Trading Standards, in which he's requested a review of the premises licence issued in respect of the International. The grounds for the review are set out in the application, and a copy of the application form and supporting documents can be seen at Appendix 1. On this occasion, the review relates to the prevention of crime and disorder licensing objective, and the details and the grounds of the review are contained within the application, namely that the licence holder has been convicted of a number of offences or relevant offences in relation to the Licensing Act. As Mr Bell's here, I'll leave Mr Bell to present all of the offences and all of the relevant matters for consideration. It can be confirmed that the application has been advertised in accordance with the requirements of the Licensing Act and associated regulations, and has also been served on all of the responsible authorities. So it's given them an opportunity to comment and put forward representations in relation to the application. So I've mentioned that the premises licence is currently held by Mr Ali Ahmad, who is also named on the licence as the designated premises supervisor. So he's both the licence holder and is also the responsible person for the sale of alcohol on the licence. And a copy of the current premises licence is also attached to the report, just for information. So you can see exactly the licensable activities that are covered by the licence and Mr Ahmad's name as the licence holder and also the DPS. So in response to the application, and following the requirement to advertise, none of the responsible authorities have submitted a representation in relation to this application. Obviously, the Trading Standards are a responsible authority and they have submitted the application, but in relation to the others, environmental health, the police, planning, etc., none of them have, on this occasion, put forward a representation. Other persons. So Mr Ahmed himself has taken the time to put forward a representation in relation to his application, and this has been attached to the report again in its entirety at Appendix 3. And in the absence of Mr Ahmed, it's probably appropriate that I read it out. So if you give me a moment. Here we go. So this is an email received from Mr Ahmed on the 22nd of May. It says, to whom it may concern, I write with regards to the application for the review of a premises licence at 24 to 26 Lowesmore. A notice was served on the premises on the 4th of May with the notice period of 28 days. I am the licensee for the above premises and I wish for this matter to be considered with my representation to be taken into consideration when the subcommittee takes place. I've been trading at the premises since 2014, and in this time I've never had an issue with regards to antisocial behaviour due to the sale of alcohol. I log everything as requested, i.e. underage refusal log. I also appreciate that I've failed in many ways with regards to the licensing objectives, the prevention of crime and disorder, and I have now reformed myself, my business reliance. My business reliance is heavily on the sale of alcohol, with it providing a large income. I'm very concerned that, I think that means revoking my licence, will cause my business to cease trading, as I will no longer be able to cover overheads. Mr Bell made a visit to my premises on the 3rd of May, and he checked the shop to make sure that there were no counterfeit cigarettes being sold, and he was pleased to see that there wasn't any. I can assure you that I've learnt my lesson and I am paying back what I owe, which means by way of a fine and community service. I ask for you to consider all of my above and take them into consideration when making your final decision. So that is a representation submitted by Mr. Ahmed. As I say, he is the licence holder in DPS, and that's in response to the application. I'll just go back up to the report. So, councillors, local policy decision considerations. The subcommittee should have regard to the council's statement of policy, which has been issued under the Licensing Act. You should be aware of the policy and the relevant sections in it. The legal implications, and I'm sure the legal solicitor will give relevant advice if he needs to, but the subcommittee this morning are obliged to determine this application with a view to promoting the licensing objectives. Now, these are, as you know, the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. On this occasion, you are considering the prevention of crime and disorder licensing objective. Those are the grounds for the application, and that's what you must consider. In making your decision, you're also obliged to have regard to the guidance issued by the Secretary of State under Section 182 of the Licensing Act. So you must have regard to the application, the representations which have been made, and any evidence that is presented during this meeting. Obviously, Mr. Bell will have an opportunity to address you in a second, and we'll go through all of his evidence. So when you've considered or when you've listened to all of those matters, you have a number of options, and you must take one of the following steps that you consider appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives. So these are the options that are available to you today. A, you can modify the conditions of the licence by altering, omitting or adding new conditions. So if you feel it appropriate to address the concerns which have been raised, you can add further conditions to the licence. You can actually exclude licensable activities from the scope of the licence. Now, on this occasion, the only licensable activity that is listed is the sale of alcohol. There's no regulated entertainment, there's no late night refreshment, so you're only looking at the sale of alcohol. You can remove the designated premises supervisor. So you can put forward a request that the DPS is removed from the licence and therefore they need to replace it with somebody else. Or you can suspend the licence for a period not exceeding 3 months. Or ultimately, you can actually revoke the licence. That is within your power today, having heard all of the relevant evidence. Any decision that's made, all of the parties will be notified of the subcommittee's decision in writing within 5 working days of the conclusion of the hearing. And anybody aggrieved by a decision taken by the committee have the rights of appeal to the Magistrates' Court. So it's not the final chapter in this case. Should the applicant or any party be aggrieved by a decision, they can lodge an appeal within 21 days for it to be reheard at the magistrates. The hearing should be concluded in accordance with the agreed procedure, which is attached to the report itself. So finally, for decision, you must consider and determine the premises licence review application. So that is the report. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
Not at this stage.
Richard?
No, not on this stage.
No, thank you. So, at the moment, the applicant, because he's not here, so
Had his representation.
yes, we've had the representation already. So trading standards.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, councillors. So the reason the licence review has been brought is in relation to sale of counterfeit and illicit tobacco and cigarettes from the premises address. Now, this goes back to the period of July 2020 up to September 2021. Now, during this period, there were 3 instances where we paid visits to the business premise and seized illicit cigarettes and counterfeit, so product that was either foreign and brought into the UK, so no non-duty paid, or product that was essentially counterfeit, so again, no duty paid and nobody knowing what exactly is in the product that's been produced. So the first visit we paid was on the 28th of July, 2020. Now, prior to us going into the shop and seizing, an undercover police officer had made a test purchase of a single packet of Marlboro cigarettes from the shop. The cigarettes were retrieved from under the counter, and the police officer was charged £5 for the cigarettes. Obviously, that price is noticeably less than the £11 or £12 you would pay for a standard packet of cigarettes. Now, the packet was red in colour, and it failed to comply with the standardised packaging regulations. It had no HMRC track and trace information, which means it was duty evaded. Now, those packets being red in colour, the standardised packaging regulations require that all cigarettes and tobacco are in a colour of Pantone 448C, which is kind of a dull green colour. So anything that's now branded like the old style Marlboro and red, which these were, clearly they're non-compliant with the labelling requirements, but there's also a very strong suspicion that they are counterfeit. And the fact that they don't have a track and trace code also leads to believe that they're counterfeit. So every individual packet of cigarettes should have a unique track and trace code, and that's so it can be traced back to source in relation to HMRC duty. So anything without that, or anything with repeating codes that are the same, again, there's a question over the validity of the packet itself. So shortly after the police officer made his test purchase, we made an enforcement visit, and we carried out an inspection of the shop, during which time we found a quantity of counterfeit and non-duty paid cigarettes and hand-rolling tobacco. Now that visit involved the use of a specialist detection dog. So obviously these dogs go around the premise and have a look and can sniff these things out when they're concealed or hidden. So that was it assisted with a visit. Now at the time of the visit, Mr. Ali Ahmed, the premise licence holder, wasn't present, but a third party, Mr. Makded Ahmed Hamad, was present. So following this visit, on the 4th of August, we interviewed Mr. Ahmed, via correspondence in relation to criminal offences that have been committed. Obviously, this was during the COVID period, so obviously getting people in for formal interviews in person was quite difficult. So he's interviewed by correspondence. So at that point in time, he was fully aware of the allegations made against him. On the 4th of August 2021, an undercover trading standards officer visited the shop and purchased 2 packets of Richmond cigarettes. Again, the cigarettes were priced at £5 a packet. Again, they were received from the back of the shop from an unknown location. Both packets of cigarettes were blue in colour and failed to comply with standardised packaging regulations. And as I've said previously, because of that, there's a strong suspicion that they are also counterfeit. Again, there was no track and trace codes on there. Now, these were subsequently examined by a trademark holder who did confirm that they were counterfeit and failed to comply with the Trademark Act 1994, so it's a criminal offence under the Trademarks Act. Now, following that, on the 13th of September 2021, we made an enforcement visit again, assisted by West Mercia Police. And again, during the inspection of the premises, more illicit tobacco products and cigarettes were found. Again, Mr. Ahmed was not present at the time, but Mr. Hamad, who was present at the previous visit, was there. Again, the specialist tobacco detection dog was there to search out anything that was concealed. And then 2 weeks later, on the 27th of September 2021, another enforcement visit was made. Now, this was made later in the day, so the previous seizure has been done early in the morning. This was done at 2:15 in the afternoon, and Mr. Ahmed was present then, and we did find a black bin liner containing more illicit tobacco products in the storage area. Now, noticeably, as we've been there and done the 3 visits, the numbers of items that we've been finding in season has reduced each time. Which is a common theme, obviously, because every time we take something, it's a financial loss to a business. So over the 3 visits, we've catalogued the amount of cigarettes and tobacco seized. So in total, we've seized 884 packets of cigarettes and 6.2 kilograms of hand-rolling tobacco, which is quite a considerable amount over the visits. So it's a retail value in excess of £10,000 that have been taken across those 3 visits. Trademark holders have confirmed that Richmond, Marlborough, Benson and Hedges and Mayfair brands of cigarettes and Amberleaf and Golden Virginia brands of hand-rolled tobacco were all counterfeit. So in total, there was 285 of those 884 packets were counterfeit. The remainder being either foreign or non-duty paid. Everything that we seized failed to comply with the standardised packaging regulations and the tobacco-related products regulations. None of the seized product had HMRC track and trace codes, so again, there's duty evaded on everything. So obviously the issue we've got is around prevention of crime and disorder. Clearly there's criminal offences being committed through the shop in relation to the sale of counterfeit and non-duty paid tobacco. There's obviously wider issues around that as well, in terms of the availability of cheap tobacco, sort of undermining government and public health policies aimed at reducing smoking and reducing the cost to the NHS. The cost of these packets as well, at £5 a packet, is probably an entry-level price for school children to start taking up smoking. At perhaps £12 a packet, something they're not likely to do, but at that price it is an encouragement to perhaps start smoking, which is again, that sort of issue around the NHS and public health policies. In general, obviously these dishonest traders who are selling illegal goods, they're making huge profits. It's affecting public safety, it's affecting legitimate businesses in the area. I think it's well known we've got a problem with the sale of illicit tobacco in Lowesmoor, and it is noticeable that businesses who legitimately sell cigarettes and tobacco are struggling down there because they simply can't compete with the sort of prices that these are going for. There is national intelligence that suggests that the trade in illicit tobacco is linked to more serious crimes such as terrorism, human trafficking, prostitution and modern-day slavery. And obviously the day-to-day sale of these just feeds that. So concern obviously is that this crime and disorder is going on at the premise, and this is why the review has been brought.
Okay. Questions? Yep.
Thank you. Can I just seek a couple of clarifications? Were there any legitimate tobacco products on sale on the premises at the time? And would a customer therefore have to make a choice between legitimate and illegitimate?
No, there were no legitimate products at the time.
And just for the sake of clarity, there's no concern that you have as a trading standards officer about the quality and genuine legitimacy of the alcohol products which are on sale in the premises?
There's no concern about the alcohol, no. We did a check during the first visit to make sure and everything seemed in order at the time.
Thank you.
Jenny?
Thank you. If I heard correctly, you said that cannabis was found on the 28th of July visit. Was it found on any of the other visits?
So I think I misspoke, not cannabis, sorry, counterfeit. So it was counterfeit products that were found there.
Apologies.
Yeah, so no drugs were found at all during the visits.
Any other questions?
No, I think not. Very clear statement.
Yes.
Sorry, can I just clarify one thing? The application has been bought.
Zoe? Yeah, that's it.
You're right.
That's all right.
The application has been bought, as far as I'm aware, only in terms of prevention of crime and disorder, and that's all that the premises licensing holder has been accused of.
Those are the grounds for the review. Under crime and disorder, that's what's been cited.
Sorry, you did make, excuse me, you did make reference to sale of underage, which would also partly fall under the protection of children from harm. I would just ask you to exclude any reference to that. That's not been part of the grounds that have been placed before the licence holder. That's not what he's responded to or been made aware of, and he isn't here to be able to respond on them. So I would ask that you limit it to the prevention of crime and disorder.
Because that is, so the...
It was just that one reference he made to sale of underage. I mean, I accept there is a bit of a crossover, in fact, that is criminal behaviour and therefore is a part of the prevention of crime and disorder as well. But there is a specific head for protection of children from harm. And I don't think it's appropriate to consider protection of children from harm when that hasn't been part of the review process.
If the counterfeit and non-duty paid products were not on display, was there any marketing activity, promotion, which would lead somebody to understand that they were for sale, and how would person know to ask for them?
There is no marketing activity for the counterfeit things on sale. I think it becomes well known which shops sell these products. And I think people tend to go in there knowing that it's there, or knowing that it's likely to be available. And as sort of been alluded to, there is an issue around the sale of counterfeit and non-duty paid cigarettes across the country, and it is sort of very much focused on particular areas. So if somebody perhaps goes in a shop and they don't have it, they'll just move their way down to other shops until they find one that does sell it, because it is a shop of a particular type that does sell this product. But I think, yeah, they don't need to market it, but there would appear to be a core customer base that would use the particular shops that sell these products. Yeah, that's correct, 3 occasions.
And
initially, we received intelligence and complaints regarding the sale of illicit products in the area. So this wasn't the only shop visited on those occasions. So there were a number of other premises around the area that were visited on those days. So we have intelligence that there's a problem with the sale of illicit cigarettes and tobacco products in an area. So we will do an operation assisted by the police with a tobacco detection job and target a number of different shops. So whilst I was in this shop doing a visit, there would have been officers from Trading Standards and the police in other shops in that area doing visits as well. Clearly, not all the shops are licensed, so we don't get the reviews for some of them that we do for this one.
Just picking up on the counterfeit side, was the tobacco tested to make sure that it was of a quality that was acceptable? I'm looking at the public safety part, which I know is out of scope, but was it a real worry to you, or any concern at all, the quality of the product?
I feel that the quality of the product is a genuine concern, but the testing to make sure that it is satisfactory is particularly expensive. We're talking in the realms of £600 a packet to have tested, and when we're seizing tens of thousands of packets every year, it's not a feasible thing to have tested, unfortunately. I mean, there is anecdotal evidence that indicates there are issues with the quality of counterfeit product, and clearly there's got to be if you can sell it at a price that low. But yeah, testing is quite an issue for us, unfortunately. But there is huge concerns around there, because genuine cigarettes do come with certain standards, particularly around self-extinguishing and that sort of thing, which there's always an issue that the question is whether counterfeit ones do that or not. But unfortunately, from a financial point of view, testing every seizure we make is not really feasible, unfortunately.
And according to the reports we've seen, there have been visits taken to these premises since the successful prosecution, and I'm assuming as a consequence there have been no repeat offences which have been discovered since the prosecution.
We've not really visited since the prosecution, and since the 27th of September. I did visit the shop with a colleague, as Mr Ahmed points out in his representations. The primary purpose of that was to serve these documents on him, so he was aware of the licence review. While there, we did have a look to see if there was any obviously available or obviously sort of stored counterfeit and illicit product. There was nothing obviously visible. We didn't have police support there. We didn't have a tobacco detection dog like we have in the past, so we couldn't go to the lengths that we've done previously. But on a sort of cursory visual inspection, there was nothing obviously there at the time.
How much do you think he was selling?
That is a question I really cannot answer, unfortunately. When you look at the quantities that were seized, clearly you don't hold that level of stock if you don't think you're going to sell it. So when you're looking at 884 packets of cigarettes, that's quite a considerable amount that you potentially are expecting to sell. So I would say whatever was there, there'd be the expectation that those were going to be sold, and probably sold in a fairly short period of time. Because clearly any sort of stock you hold as a business is effectively dead money until you sell it, sorry.
So, as we haven't got the applicant here, we'd like to sum up now all the, so WRS and trading standards can sum up. Okay?
Okay, thank you. So, thank you, Chair, members. You are asked today to consider an application for the review of a premises licence in relation to the International Store. The International Store is a grocery store based in Lowesmoor, which also has a premises licence in place for the sale of alcohol, so by retail. The grounds for the review as put forward by Trading Standards are that the licence holder and DPS of the premises has been involved and actually prosecuted of the offence. The offence is listed, which is the systematic supply of illicit tobacco products. You have to go on to consider what steps are appropriate to promote the licensing objectives. And on this occasion, you also need to bear in mind that Mr. Ahmad, the person who's convicted of the offences, is both the licence holder and the DPS. So there are certain grounds, and I'm sure your legal advisor will go on to give you relevant advice if necessary on what you can do on those stages. So having heard everything, you need to take one of those considerations that were listed earlier in the reports. Thank you.
I think just to sum up, it's 3 occasions where we have visited the shop. It's 3 occasions over quite a long period of time. On each time, counterfeit and non-duty paid cigarettes have been seized, along with hand-rolling tobacco. Interspersed with that, there's been test purchases made prior to the first visit and prior to the second visit. So the products were being sold. I think we've been through the issues around the area and around what the issues of illicit tobacco are. But it is obviously a very serious matter. It undermines legitimate businesses. It deprives funds from the exchequer, and being counterfeit, potentially there's other issues around the quality and the safety of the cigarettes themselves.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And advice from legal?
you're reminded that you need to determine this application with a view to the promotion of the licensing objectives, which are the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. I've already advised you previously that this review has been brought in relation to the prevention of crime and disorder, and you should limit your deliberations to those. In making the decision, the subcommittee is also obliged to have regard to the guidance issued by the Secretary of State under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003 and the Council's own Statement of Licensing Policy. You must give regard to the application, representations made and the evidence that you've heard during the hearing. Again, I'd remind you that you're obliged to not place any less weight on the written representations made by the applicant, the applicant, and you must give full weight to his written evidence and not place any less weight because he has chosen not to attend. I will just remind you that, again, if you feel that something is required in terms of to promote the licensing objective, you shouldn't take into account financial considerations and the financial implications that he suggested in his report, in his submissions. But other than that, you should consider all the what he said. You must take some steps as you consider appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives. And again, your options are to modify the conditions of the licence by altering, omitting or adding new conditions, to exclude a licensing activity from the scope of the licence, although you, as already been told, there is only one licensing activity, to remove the designated premises supervisor, to suspend the licence for a period not exceeding 3 months, or to revoke the licence. I would remind you again that the step that you take has to be to promote the licensing objective and cannot be purely punitive. All parties to the hearing will be notified to the subcommittee's decision in writing within 5 working days of the conclusion of the hearing, and any party aggrieved by decision taken by the subcommittee can appeal the decision to the Magistrates' Court within 21 days of being notified of the decision in writing, and the hearing should be conducted in accordance with the agreed procedure. Unless I can assist you further.
Okay. Right, so I'm now going to announce an adjournment of the hearing, so we'll now deliberate. Okay. So can I please, so all people, oh crikey, all parties with exception to Thank you for that. We have decided that the outcome is that we're going to revoke the licence on the grounds that the objective of the prevention and of crime and disorder cannot be achieved without revocation.
We agree.
Okay, and all parties to the hearing will be notified of the subcommittee's decision in writing within 5 working days of the conclusion of the hearing, and any party aggrieved by a decision taken by the subcommittee may appeal against the decision to the Magistrates' Court within 21 days of notifying of the decision in writing. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Case
thank
closed.
you.
Got to wait
Thank you,
until 11:30
thank
for
you
the next one.